Sometimes when you get caught up in looking at the shiny new toys that your favorite team picks up in free agency and the draft, you forget to look back and compare them to the toys that you got rid of. I'm Glenn Naughton with JetNation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. So that's what we're going to do tonight, folks. We're going to take a look. I know, and listen, I understand with this draft that it's not exactly getting the greatest reviews across the board. Lots of B's and A's. If you look at the grades across the league from the experts, the pundits, if you will. I graded it, and look, and like I said, I'm grading approach more so than talent. Um, if I was grading it overall, if I was just purely looking at the talent, I would say this is a B draft class. But that really isn't that important because we have to see if the talent performs. But when you look at the approach, which you kind of can judge now, I'm giving it a C because you failed to get a defensive tackle in a ridiculously deep class, and you used a fourth round pick on a guy that really should have been a day 3 pick. As I said the other day, NFL.com had Smith graded as a round 7 / priority undrafted free agent. So to take him in the 4th round was pretty surprising, but that is what the Jets did. But of course, before the draft, we had free agency, and the Jets didn't make a lot of big splash moves. Really, only a couple with significant financial investment. But of course, they will be replacing some guys who left. And then, of course, you've got the several DTs they brought in, none of which honestly inspire much confidence in me. But what the hell do they care? I don't think these guys are sitting around watching YouTube to find out what Glenn thinks. And nor should they be. GM Island Empire says Stonehands better work out and surprise everybody. I'll tell you what, man, it's a dicey pick. Across the board, like I said, I think I said it after he was picked. It's not as if Muji is in a position to deny the fact that he drafted a receiver who has a very difficult time holding onto the football. But he came, they asked him like, hey, your guy drops a lot of footballs. And he's like, yep, he sure does. And the Jets are hoping to fix that. Like I said, I know it's a different staff and all that, but I think if it could be fixed that easily, somebody would have fixed Alan Lazard a long time ago. And look, that's not to say he won't come around, not to say he won't get better. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. All that we are going to wait and see in time what happens. But looking at the major moves, we're not going to talk about second and third string guys who left and got replaced by another second or third string guy who we may not be all that familiar with. I mean, Javon Kinlaw. Let's start there since his name popped into my head because I'm thinking about the DTs. He was such a disappointment last year. I mean, I don't know if everyone saw it, but he did have moments. I saw several moments where you're like, wow, if he did all the time, or if he could make plays like that consistently, or even just more frequently, you'd have a really good defensive tackle. Problem was he rarely looked that good. Love the cornerback. Look, I don't have a problem with Thomas. My only problem with that pick is what's the plan for him to get on the field? If he's playing this year, you're benching a corner who's making $12 million a year. If he doesn't get on the field, you're benching a corner who you took with your third pick. What was he, 72, 73? 73, yeah. So, I mean, you're wasting resources somewhere. You're either wasting money or you wasted a pick. And yes, I get he could be a good player eventually, but he's not a first rounder. So it's not like you have a 5th round option. It's a 4-year rookie deal. And if he doesn't play for the first year or two, because again, you brought in Brandon Stevens and paid him a lot of money. So you're either benching a lot of money or you're benching a premium draft pick. And don't tell me you're benching Saul, because that's not happening. Even with all the fans, being as upset with him as they were last year for his drop in play. So let's get into it a little bit. Like I said, we'll start with the DTs. Looking at Kinlaw, the problem is the Jets' defensive tackles were bad enough last year outside of Quinnen Williams, and even he didn't have his best year. but the defensive tackles were so bad that it's just a wash with the guys they brought in. They brought in backups, journeymen. I get it that Noddy has been a starter in the past, but when I watched them on film, especially against the run, which is what I was focusing on because the Jets got run on so badly last year, I didn't come away feeling like, oh yeah, that's what they need. Like that guy's a run stuffer. So I was like, all right. And I often do this. I often, to sort of cross check myself and cross reference and see if I'm being unfair to a player. Went and looked up his numbers on PFF, which, like him or not, like I say to people, where do you go to get a breakdown of a player's performance in every single game and over the course of the season, snap by snap, with detailed breakdowns of where they played, things of that nature? Um, like them or not, they've got some good data, and it's better than just guessing or asking a fan who may have watched a dozen or so snaps. Um, it's one of those things where it's the like tell me a better resource, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, how many people do you know who know off the back of their hand every single player in the NFL and can tell me, you know, like that, how well the guy played? So anyway, this is a roundabout way of saying his run defense grades were terrible. Um, Again, I didn't think they were good. I didn't think he was good against the run, and the PFF grades suggest he also is not good against the run. Someone said to me the other day when I was critical of this front office for not getting a defensive tackle, hey dude, calm down. They signed Noddy. He literally all he does is stuff the run. And I was like, I don't remember seeing that when they signed him. Um, and going back and watching a little bit, I didn't see it again. And apparently whoever does the work for PFF didn't see it either. So take it for what you will. Maybe the Jets feel like they have a coaching staff that can turn him around and get him playing at a higher level. But really, he was no better, may have even been worse, but he was in the same ballpark as Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, so not a whole lot there at DT. So I will say the Jets at defensive tackle maybe got a little bit worse, but let's just call it a wash. Let's say they got no better, no worse, which isn't good because they were bad. So it's not as if you're looking at it and saying, well, they were pretty good last year. And if they didn't improve, but they're the same, that's fine. No, they were bad and they got run all over. And it looks like it might be the same. And look, there might be some bodies they can add in free agency who can help. Hope I'm working on that right now, hoping to put a show out tomorrow night. I just want to be a little bit more thorough, dig in a little deeper on some of the undrafted free agents who are still available at key positions, receiver, DT, things like that. Do we jump into quarterback right away? I don't want to I don't want to pretend that's not the most important position on the field. And going from Aaron Rodgers, who threw 28 touchdown passes last year, to Justin Fields, on the surface, you would say it's a downgrade. And it is in terms of just a guy being able to throw the football. Even with Rodgers not playing well last year, I still would take him over Fields based on what we know. Now, look, might Justin Fields improve dramatically this offseason and be a different player? I guess it's possible. He's still young enough. Might Rodgers continue to decline and be a worse passer next year than he was this year? That's also possible. If he plays, we'll see what happens there. But the thing with even if you want to say Rodgers is better, which I think he is, um, the fact that this team, I believe, is going to be a heavy, heavy ground and pound football team. Fields may not be the better passer, but he might be the better option for this team for what they want to do. So while on the one hand, unless I've seen people say, Rodgers is washed and Fields is better. Listen, Fields hasn't done enough. Yes, he went 4-2 in a 6-game stretch. Fantastic. Tons of screen passes. And that's not his fault. He's running what's called. But it makes you wonder, was there a lack of confidence in him or a lack of confidence in the offensive line? Because it's not as if they didn't let him throw the ball down the field sometimes. And every now and then he would throw a beautiful deep ball. Not as consistent as you would like. That thing that's reflected in his completion percentage, I think it was fairly low. But so was Rodgers. Um, But so we'll even that one, we'll call it a wash, and that's probably being generous. That's yeah, I don't do I see Justin Fields getting the Jets in the end zone 28 times next year? Either run or pass. I don't. And I know efficiency metrics and all this stuff, but look, you don't the scoreboard doesn't tell you efficiency metrics. You can look at the scoreboard and figure out who scored a bunch of touchdowns and who didn't, or who scored more touchdowns. So I get that the efficiency is important, but at the end of the day, score points. And if Fields can't do it at the same clip that Rodgers did, then that's that. Then we can have that conversation when we get to that point. But in letting Rodgers go, and I mean everyone knew this was the case, but in letting him go, now this front office had the option, like, hey, let's talk to him about a pay cut, see if he'll come back, and then we come back to war with him next year, and then we can rework Devontae's deal because he'll stay if Aaron stays. But they don't try to rework him. They don't even ask. I mean, even before the meeting, the now infamous meeting, there were reports that claimed Rodgers was ready to take a pretty hefty pay cut. But the Jets didn't even, they just, we're moving on. We don't want you to take a pay cut. Play for vet minimum. We're moving on. So in doing that, Devontae is going to leave as well. So you opt to lose Rodgers and Devontae, which I'm not knocking that move because, again, the price tag, the price tag is you're still paying the guaranteed money that was paid out. So you're really limited in how much you can bring that down, how much you can bring Aaron Rodgers' cost down and opting for Fields. So you let Rodgers go. Devontae then, of course, leaves. So you go out and you sign Josh Reynolds, who you know from Detroit, who you know from Denver. Look, he's got a couple of seasons. He put up 600 yards. I'm pretty sure Devontae did that in half a season with the Jets last year with Rodgers. Career high was 618. He had 608 just 2 years ago. So he's 2 years removed from a 600-yard season. Not bad. But also worth noting, he did that in Detroit with Ben Johnson, who was arguably the most creative, effective play caller in the league. So no huge production for Reynolds, but he's going to be your two most likely. Maybe Lazard beats him out. We'll see about that. But Reynolds, I mean, that's a downgrade. That's a clear downgrade from Devontae to Reynolds. So we're going to be generous and say QB is a wash. You know what? I can't be that generous. We'll say QB is a slight downgrade because you can make the argument that it's a pretty big downgrade. Slight downgrade at quarterback. DT is a wash. They lost a bunch of not very good guys. They brought in a bunch of not very good guys. So DT is a wash. Wide receiver, you got worse. Now, tight end. I know we're all excited about Mason Taylor, and we think he'll be productive at some point. But rookie tight ends rarely produce much. And I get that Tyler Conklin didn't produce a whole lot, but Tyler Conklin didn't see a whole lot of targets. Mason Taylor, just put it this way, rookie Mason Taylor will not be as good as veteran Tyler Conklin. Veteran Mason Taylor might be much better than veteran Tyler Conklin. But rookie Mason Taylor, learning the ropes, learning the league, is not going to be as good a player as Tyler Conklin. And again, I'm not saying numbers production-wise. I'm saying he just won't be as good. If he gets the targets, he might approach or surpass the numbers that Conklin had. But that would be due largely to the fact that the Jets don't have a lot at receiver. They've got nothing but Taylor at tight end. Again, smart, maybe. We haven't seen him in the Jets uniform. Promising young kid. Ruckert, as I've said several times, you hope that the light will come on with his former college quarterback under center. So maybe you'll get a little bit more out of that. But in a 1-for-1 swap, Taylor for Conklin, because Taylor's probably going to start, you've downgraded there. For now. Important part of this. Don't come screaming at me that Taylor's going to be better than Conklin. I think he will. But rookie Taylor won't be as good as veteran Conklin. So you've downgraded at tight end. And then, of course, cornerback, which we talked about Brandon Stevens earlier. DJ Reed departs. You bring in Brandon Stevens, who gave up a bazillion yards passing last year. He was targeted over 100 times. I think 104, 106 times opposing quarterbacks threw his way. And as a result, he gave up over 800 yards receiving. I believe he gave up more yards than any corner in the NFL. DJ Reed ain't anywhere near that bad. DJ Reed, as we know, is a player. I think, and look, I've talked about this. I think that the Robert Saleh firing last year, I think it was so disheartening to the defense specifically. I think maybe we did see a lack of effort in that middle part of the season. Sauce had people still talk about Sauce and the tackling issues. Those kind of went away. But there was a 4 or 5 week stretch where his tackling was in the toilet and where DJ Reed didn't look like himself. And I think these guys just felt like our dude just got fired. We just had a 2-year buildup to what was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. And here we are week 5 and our guy is gone and our season is essentially over. So I'm not justifying. I'm not saying it's okay to start mailing it in, but I think some guys may have. And I think that has a lot to do with just being a human being. I mean, I can't imagine the frustration of all the buildup. We're going to be a Super Bowl contender. We got Aaron Rodgers, ruptures the Achilles. And that defense goes out and gives up 14 points a game. With Rodgers, that was a Super Bowl contender. No question. Then you come out the next year, Rodgers plays, defense isn't as good as they were. The kicker misses a couple of field goals, and now the coach is fired. Your head's got to be spinning. Like, what the hell? What just happened? We were supposed to be going to the Super Bowl, or at least a deep playoff run. And instead, it's week 5, and we have a new head coach, and the guy that loved us is gone. So I think that's where we may have seen a little bit of a drop off. But DJ Reed did have his, especially, week 17 after he got called out because, yes, that was silly to make the comments. He said, I'm looking forward to the next chapter. Like, you're under contract. You're still playing games for that team. You don't talk publicly about how you're looking forward to leaving. He did that. People called him out. And then he, I think just to show people he could play, he played really well week 17, 18, well, going off memory. 16, whatever week it was, the week after the comments about looking forward to leaving. But the interesting thing with him, I mean, not so interesting anymore because it doesn't really matter. He signed with Detroit. But if you saw, even despite his comments that he was looking forward to leaving, DJ Reed commented on the Aaron Glenn signing. He tweeted out it was a good hire. And I've brought this up. I saw that and thought, is he reconsidering? Like, does he like the hire enough that the Jets should give him a call and say, hey, do you want to come back? I've not seen or heard any reports saying they did contact him. And he leaves in free agency. So going from DJ Reed to Brandon Stevens, whether you like it or not, that's a significant downgrade. So you won 5 games last year. You got a downgrade at quarterback. You got a downgrade at CB2. You got a downgrade at wide receiver, whether you want to call Devontae 1 or 2, whatever it is. You've got let's say a downgrade at wide receiver not named Garrett Wilson. And you've got a downgrade at tight end. DT is about the same. And you won 5 games last year. Now, if you're hoping they can surpass that, despite all the downgrades, how does that happen? How do they get there? Well, hopefully, coaching is an upgrade. I mean, I can't imagine a world where Aaron Glenn is worse than Robert Saleh. I just can't. Maybe you can. I can't allow myself to. I suppose, I hate even saying it. I suppose anything is possible. But that would be an absolutely shocking development to have Aaron Glenn come out there and have anybody wishing for Robert Saleh to come back because it was time for Saleh to go. As I said several times before, it was actually long beyond the time that Saleh should have been gone. But what are your thoughts? Put them in the comments below. Let us know. Do you think this Jets team got better or worse? Are you happy Lazard's back? That's not an upgrade or a downgrade. That's just bringing back a guy who drops a lot of footballs. And you could also say Fields isn't getting 20 per. He's getting a lot, but he's not getting 20 per. Up to 20 depending on incentives, but 30, so he'd be getting 15 per. But the Rodgers money was almost washed by getting rid of Devontae. Those nearly canceled each other out. But look, left tackle, right? If you get Olu for a full season, he'll be better than Smith was. Tyron Smith was a disaster. So you're upgrading at left tackle, hypothetically, potentially, hopefully, better be. So that's huge to upgrade at left tackle. Right tackle, you're hoping is an upgrade, but listen, Membu's not set foot on the field. I'm not saying he won't be good, but let's wait and see. They still have a core of four, who's a proven veteran, multi-year starter for a very good team in Pittsburgh. There's a world where he plays well enough early that Membu doesn't get on the field, right away. And again, I'm not predicting this. I'm just saying I just don't want to make any huge assumptions. Who says you had to keep Adams with Rodgers? Well, what I'm saying is if Rodgers had agreed to a pay cut, then because if you remember when Adams came, he reworked his deal slightly, but he kept in place the big paydays so he would have the option to leave if Rodgers didn't return. So if Rodgers returned, then I have no doubt that Adams would have been willing to talk about a new deal that was reworked so he could play with Rodgers for another couple years. Because I think that was Rodgers' goal to play 2 more years. So, but either way, both of them are gone, and the players in their place are not as good. Just looking at the roster to see if I missed anything significant. We talked about, I mentioned Lazard. Defensively, as someone said to me the other day, why is Michael Clemens still on the roster? I'm curious to see if they move him to DT because they need help there, and he's just not getting the job done at D end. But I mean, I can still see him getting let go. But if they're going to keep him around, I can't see them keeping him as a defensive end. But you're getting Jermaine Johnson back, which is an upgrade, I guess, technically, but we don't know at what point he'll be a full go 100%. He'll be playing early, but at what point will he be himself? Of course, Quincy will be here. Sherwood is obviously coming back. And Cisco, I think Cisco can be an upgraded safety. Andre Cisco, like I said, big fan of his for a couple of years now. So there are a couple of upgrades. Biggest one really being what we hope will be a full season of Olu Fashanu. Let's see. Charles says, not happy Lazard's back. Here, let's throw this up here. Not happy Lazard's back. Too many drops, but at this point in time, I think an upgraded quarterback with Fields, mostly because of mobility. Defensive tackle, I have worries, and maybe Stevens doesn't start. Thomas does. Well, I mentioned that, Charles, and listen, let the best man win. Whoever the better player is, play him. But that means you've either, as a team, you're either benching a $12 million a year guy, or you're benching your third round pick, who may be ready to play. So, I don't think either one's going to be an upgrade over DJ Reed anytime soon. Thomas could get to a point in his career, but not as a rookie. He won't be as good as DJ Reed. So, still a downgrade for this season. And I hope he wins. If the Jets don't care, if the Jets are happy to take this gamble, and if they're going to let the best guy play, fine. It's not my money. Bench Stevens at $12 million a year and start Thomas, and just get the better young player on the field. I think it'd make people feel a little better about the draft too. Not that the team is worrying about that, but it's just nice as a fan to feel like your team made a good move. Wild Wave, how we doing, buddy? In a rebuild, I think they're going about it the right way. It might be a 2-year process, maybe 3. I just hope Woody's is patient because Glenn will push back. That's the thing, and that was kind of what got me thinking to do this topic tonight. Was me sitting there, and I've said it a few times, but I don't know how many fans have really sat down and thought to themselves, "There's a really good chance this playoff drought hits 16, 17 years." It's certainly hitting 15 years. I mean, listen, if the O-line stays completely healthy and Justin Fields has a revelation and not only isn't just a threat with his legs, but can make some big time throws, if Aaron Glenn and Wilkes can get this defense playing at a high level, again, that's the reason I have a hard time seeing it. The DTs. You have weak DTs and you have light linebackers. I mean, if you want your 220-pound linebackers to be able to run around and make plays, you got to keep them freed up. And I just have a difficult time seeing these defensive tackles taking up enough blockers to prevent teams from throwing linemen at the linebackers and just wiping them out. So I hope like crazy that I'm wrong. Is Stevens' money guaranteed? I forget the exact amount. I actually looked a couple days ago, probably on draft day. You could, if you cut him next year, the hit is fairly big, like 8-9 million, I think. And the following year, I think it's more feasible. I forget what it dropped to, but I think unless they're willing to throw away a big chunk, I think he's here minimum 2 years. I'm looking at the roster and the depth. It's not good going forward, especially with our cap. Yeah, that's the thing. And kind of out of left field, random here, but I hate that they let Brandon Eccles go. I really do. He had 2 picks last year on 40 targets. I shot out a tweet the other day, and look, maybe I'm off by 2 or 3, the exact number. But if you look at Thomas's snaps in college last year, combined with Stevens and Sauce, those 3 corners were targeted 193 times, I believe, between the 2 of them, or between the 3 of them. They had 2 interceptions on 193 targets. Brandon Eccles had 2 on 40 targets, and they let him walk out the door. Pittsburgh Steeler. I think that was a mistake. I think letting Eccles go was a big time mistake. But we are where we are. We'll see what happens with Quantez Stiggers, of course, as he enters his second year. And I thought, I've talked about it before. I think last year, Jarek Bernard-Converse is one of the most improved guys on the team. So if Jarek Bernard-Converse is going to get some run at corner, more power to him. Adams would have cost Davis Fields. Bottom line, cutting Rodgers and signing Fields costs more. Yeah, I mean, listen, there was no getting around. It was going to cost a ton of money no matter what they did with Rodgers. And that was part of my point when the trade was rumored to be happening. Looking at what Rodgers was going to cost the Jets in pick compensation and cap space. And that was the situation I kept saying. I said, what if you trade for an old guy who gets hurt, who hangs it up? Now, in this case, he didn't hang it up. He just got cut. But you've got a quarterback who's no longer on your roster, and you're taking enormous cap hits as a result. And that's exactly where they are right now. Huge cap hits for a guy who's gone. And that's their cap situation isn't great. But again, cap keeps going up, and I'm sure next year there are some more guys they can move around, some cuts they can make. So I think they'll be able to do a little bit more next year than they did this year. But again, they weren't very aggressive this offseason, but part of me looks at this draft and wonders, is this just an admission that they know they're not going to compete this year? Because they have to know that. They're not going to say it publicly. They have to say, we're going to win a lot of games. We're going to start winning right now. You got to say that. You can't say, we're going to be bad for the next couple of years. Don't forget to send in that season ticket money. That's just not going to happen. Wild Wave says the Thomas pick was intriguing. If push comes to shove with Sauce, AZ should fill in nicely. He has the tools to develop. He does, but I don't think they're going to screw around with the Sauce thing. Like, just get your great players signed. Don't. Enough of this. The Jets rarely develop players. When they do, they let them go. They got to stop that. Like, keep some of your guys. So sign Sauce, sign Garrett, sign JJ, Brees. I wouldn't mind. I don't see that happening. I think running back, if he has a huge year, he's going to want huge money. And if he doesn't have a huge year, they're not going to want him. So he'll either not perform well enough to get re-signed, or he'll perform too well to get re-signed. Because I just can't see you doing JJ, Sauce, Garrett, and Brees, and with the other guys you've got coming up. I know we're only a year or two away now because look, Will McDonald's 2 years in now. So in another year or two, he'll be wanting that new deal. So buckle up. That's what Aaron Glenn said, wasn't it? I think he meant in regards to the football. I'm talking about in terms of cap management, keeping these guys in house, keeping them around. We'll see how it transpires. But what are your thoughts, folks? Like I said, chime in if you want in the comment section. Give us a like, give us a follow. I will be back either tomorrow or the next day, digging deep on the best available players in free agency that can still help this team. There are some out there. Not a lot of superstars. You could argue no superstars at this point, but which is to be expected. But that doesn't mean there can't still be a little bit of help on the way because, as we know, there are some spots where this team definitely needs it. Have a good one, Jets fans.